We're walking from the dancing house along one of Prague's most beloved summer destinations, Náplavka, along the Vltava.
Did you deliberately pick a time when there's almost nobody here?
Yes, because when it gets warmer, this place, especially in the evenings, is absolutely packed. Right now we can actually walk, look around, and have a conversation without feeling like salmon swimming upstream.
What does Náplavka actually mean? I always assumed it was just a trendy name someone invented for Instagram.
No, it's an old word. Historically, Náplavka didn't mean a scenic promenade. It meant a lower working platform at the water's edge. Boats moored here, goods were unloaded, carts rolled through, timber and sand and ice were stored. This was a workplace, not a place for strolling.
Oh look, a metal frog on a barrel by the boat entrance. Is that just decoration? Or does it have some hidden meaning?
Honestly, it's more of a character than a legend. These things at moorings tend to be treated as local art, a good omen, a mascot for the place. River fauna as guardian. For a place like this, it's entirely logical.
So, Náplavka isn't the whole embankment. It's specifically this lower level at the water?
Exactly this. This wide stone platform is Náplavka. What's interesting is that nothing had to be reinvented from scratch. The shape of the place stayed the same. Only the life happening on it changed. Like an old factory turned into a loft, but far more honest about it.
Is the river deep here? There are some fairly substantial vessels moored.
Deep enough for the river life here? And that's a good reminder that the Vltava for Prague wasn't just a pretty view. It was a genuine working artery, not just a background for photographs, but part of how the city actually functioned.
Look, what are those glass circles in the wall?
Those are from the recent renovation, but the spaces behind them are old. They used to be called kopki, storage rooms built directly into the body of the embankment wall. After the reconstruction, they were turned into galleries, workshops, studios, a library, and cafés. And the large round glass openings became the most visible new detail. Architectural signature. It was a warehouse. Now it's espresso and a contemporary art exhibition.
So, the stylish cafes in the wall are former warehouses?
Exactly. Reinterpreted, not reinvented.
And those chains on the wall? Are they old or modern? They look like they used to hold barges.
That was precisely their function. Everything here still looks like the place remembers what it was for.
What's it like in the evenings?
Very atmospheric. The place is romantic just by nature. Water, stone, boats, a long line of bank, lights, the light at sunset. In summer, you add music, bars, and evening gatherings at the water. If you ever need to impress someone, bring them here. The embankment does all the work for you.
Since we're here, delicate question. Where can one find, let's say, a discreet spot with a toilet?
Absolutely not on the street. They find people for that, and tourists especially enthusiastically. You might see people stopping in the most inappropriate places around the city, but that's not our level of civilization.
So what do we do?
Follow me. There are public toilets on Náplavka.
Seriously?
Free ones.
Wait, free public toilets in the center of Prague? That sounds like an urban legend.
Come and see. The official website for the new Kobki specifically states that after the reconstruction, 3 toilets operate on the embankments. Free. In the center of Europe.
Honestly, it's quite decent inside. Clean, tidy. I really didn't expect that.
Prague has a talent for surprising you in the most unexpected directions. Sometimes, literally.
Oh, look, what's that on the wall? Someone's portrait?
Here's what's interesting. In Prague's open public catalogs, 2 separate objects are registered at this section. One listed as Socha na zdi Náplavky pod Rašinovým nábřežím. Another as Relief ve zdi Náplavky pod Rašinovým nábřežím v Praze. So it's not one random thing, but at least 2 documented artistic elements in the embankment wall. One classified as a sculpture, the other as a relief. The records include the type of object, location, and photographs. But no detailed annotation about the author or subject.
So it's not some famous monument that everyone's supposed to know?
Quite the opposite. These are quiet details of the place. Not a grand monument, but things woven into the very fabric of the embankment. One reads as a 3-dimensional figure on the wall, the other as a relief carved into stone. And that's the pleasure of it. Náplavka catches you not just with boats and water, but with things like these that you notice only if you're paying attention, or miss entirely if you're walking with a coffee and looking at your phone.
And those boards nearby, is that an exhibition about Náplavka itself?
There are often small exhibitions and urban installations here. Events run constantly on the embankments, and the Kopki hosts small exhibitions, meetings, and workshops. There's even a dedicated space called Komunitní Kopka 17, specifically for small non-commercial exhibitions, events, workshops, and gatherings. A former storage room is a cultural venue. Life does know how to surprise.
Look, there's a smooth strip running through the cobblestones. Is that a road?
Essentially, yes. And that's not accidental. Náplavka always needed to accommodate walking, deliveries, and vessel maintenance at the same time.
The runners get it too. They all stick to that strip.
Of course, smoother to run on than cobblestones. Runners are smart people. Not always, but on this particular question, definitely.
What's it like here on weekends?
Completely different. More people, more movement, markets, events, crowds of people just wandering. The official program for the Rašinovo nábřeží embankment runs events constantly. And on Saturdays, there's a regular farmers market. What we're seeing now is Náplavka in casual clothes. On weekends, it puts on its best outfit.
people actually sit right on this stone bank?
Yes, in pairs, in groups, alone, sitting, watching the water, talking, in no hurry, and nobody bothers anyone. It looks completely natural here, as if the city deliberately built this place so that people would finally stop rushing somewhere.
Look at those iron ladders going straight down into the water. What are those for?
Access to the water, mooring, servicing vessels. Everything here is very close to the river and subordinate to it. The ladders, chains, rings in the walls, not decoration, but the working anatomy of the embankment.
Do these ships stay here all year, or do they go somewhere for winter? Feels like they've taken up the entire bank.
Things change slightly by season, but river life here is almost constant. The Kopki and the program at Rashinovo Náplavka are designed for year-round use, not just summer.
You can feel that. The water here isn't just for aesthetics. It feels like everything around grew out of it.
Exactly. First, everything here was built around river work. Now it's built around river atmosphere. But the foundation of the place is the same. The river didn't go anywhere. It just changed its job title.
Look! Is that actually a sauna on a barge?
Yes, and that's the whole character of Náplavka in one image. This used to be purely a working river space, loading, unloading, storing, mooring. Now, on that same foundation, a completely different life has grown. Boats, cafés, cultural venues, walks, evening gatherings, sport, events, and now a sauna right on the water. The place wasn't reinvented. It just made a very successful transition from its working era into its urban one.
So, vessels really did stand here with cargo before?
Yes, and this whole part of the city was deeply tied to river life. The river here wasn't a backdrop. It was part of everyday work. The Vltava fed people, transported things, stored things. Now it entertains.
Oh, what's that bridge? Is that the old railway bridge? Or am I wrong?
You're not wrong. That's the railway bridge at Viton. And near it, the atmosphere of Náplavka immediately changes. It becomes less postcard perfect and more alive, slightly industrial. Prague stops posing and just starts existing.
Yes, the picture changes completely with it there.
Here, Prague is no longer on parade. More real. The version tourists rarely see because they usually turn back before reaching it.
When a train passes overhead, is it all travel romance? Or does it just deafeningly roar?
Both at once. The noise is significant, but it doesn't intrude. It adds character to the place. Water right there, an old bridge above you, a train passing through, and you suddenly feel that this is a living city, not a set. Romance with a metal accent.
Look, a small boat coming this way. Too small for a cafe.
Right. Not a cafe. That looks like local river transport. One of Prague's ferry crossings. But that's a separate story for the next video. It has its own history, and it's worth it.